Hello everyone, welcome to Budapest, the Kinocast. Welcome to this week's episode, Black Widow, directed by Kate Shortland, released in 2021. It is a movie. Let's just dive into it.
Good description.
Today I'm actually sitting here again with the two co-hosts, Taylor Stenhouse and Nicholas Finch, and a guest, Max Glasner. So,
You can't see.
Yeah, Nick's in darkness.
hello, darkness, my old friend.
Actually, can I commend you for being one of the few people to actually say my last name right? That's fantastic.
Yes!
That's how I've always said it in my head.
Yeah, is it?
Now
Good,
I'm proud of
good.
Yes, it is.
Oh, good. I'm in good company then.
So I see Nicholas is molding himself into darkness.
Was born in it.
I don't want to speak for Nicholas, but at least my energy matches how much I care about this movie.
Wait, are we already setting up that we're not big on this? Or?
I think my.
I actually like the movie. Mm-hmm. I just have so little to say about it.
That's fair.
See, Taylor, that's your best camera angle yet. So that's really you're saying you'll love the movie.
If you're still planning on doing the Roberts, this might be in a category best Taylor Stenhouse camera angle. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
just to spite you, next week I'll have to use my actual studio at work and use like my 4K cameras and everything.
When you say that, I just pictured like Martin Scorsese sitting at the Oscars, like waiting.
Dude, you seriously gonna like use this professional equipment for the goddamn Space Jam episode?
Yeah, for the Space Jam episode, just out of spite.
I have ethical concerns with seeing the Space Jam.
Ethical concerns.
Just like they should have had ethical concerns about half the shit in this movie, but you know, whatever.
All right, let's get into Black Widow. It's a movie.
It definitely exists.
It exists.
Hey, can I just say before anything? I actually do really like how creepy my camera looks right now.
The Nicholas creepy.
Oh, now I can kind of make out your silhouette.
It's horrifying.
It's horrifying.
You look like the introduction to like some kid's gaming YouTube. Like I'm about to see a splash screen show up, and
there's gonna be some stuff.
What's up, gamers?
We're in Unfriended 3.
Finally,
episode 603 of Roblox.
The best franchise.
There we go.
Oh god, that's even worse than my camera angles.
Oh my god. I couldn't actually did it pop up for a second?
A little bit. No, because you're doing what I'm doing where I'm like flipping between Wikipedia articles and starting to light up stuff. I have to look up Wikipedia to know what the hell's going on with this movie.
Alright, so one of the things with this movie, let's just say it should have released after Civil War. And that's not one. Second thing is, it should have been a good movie.
Oh, well.
So, I'll give my introductory thoughts, which to paint the picture is how I saw this movie. This is the first. Now, I've been in the theater, like, honestly, close to probably 10 times since last year, since before coronavirus, when movies came back for like 2 months in my area last fall and then went away again. But they were showing like a lot of films, old films. So I saw a lot of movies in that period of times, and I've seen maybe 2 or 3 since last fall. This is the first crowded movie theater I've been in since Sonic the Hedgehog, which I saw on Valentine's Day like a moron in a theater of crowded kids.
This is the first,
so that was my last crowded theater experience.
This is the first crowded
this
theater.
This was my first
movie
since
for me too.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Yes.
So you saw it on Valentine's Day. How many people do you think watched Sonic the Hedgehog on Valentine's Day and then went back and just made passionate love? Because
probably a very high number.
I was just gonna say it can't be zero.
It can't be zero.
It can't be zero.
Nothing can be zero.
So I walk into a crowded theater, and honestly, my reaction to last week, whenever this was, who cares about time? Whenever this was, and I realized, oh, Black Widow's coming out this weekend. I have to go see that, and I just didn't I'm a little bit of a shill. I'll go see all the Marvel films. I don't like all of them, but I'll go see all of them. This was all of a sudden I was just like, I really don't care about going to see this film. So I get there, I was like not really wanting to spend my Friday night watching this movie. I walk into this theater, which is crowded, which I'm not used to anymore, and some D-bag is in my seat. And because you have the assigned seats now, and you're also even still you're supposed to have one empty seat on each side of your party.
Yeah.
So I walk in there, and this guy is in my seat, and he's in the middle of his party of like 5 people. And so I'm like, "Hey, I'm in like H6," and he's like, "Well, this is H18." I was like, "Nope, number's right there on the seat. That is H6." He's like, "Oh." So the one empty seat on this side of the row was H4, and this guy just moves to H4. Instead of their whole party moving to their actual seats. So then I have to sit in the middle of all of them. And I'm just like, every little thing is annoying me. The popcorn and people talking and making dumb noises.
It's the same thing that happened to me.
All bothering me.
In front of me, there was a whole group of teenagers, dumb teenagers, just sitting in the wrong seat. And the theater manager actually came into the room, pointed to the other seats. And then there was, when the theater manager left the room, they were still like, "Oh, but I want to sit there, so I'm just gonna sit there." It's like, oh my god!
So I was so negative going into this movie. I was like, at best, it's gonna be aggressively okay and mediocre. At worst, I'm just gonna hate my life. Yeah. Once the movie started going, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I feel the need to lead this movie with my score. Whenever I talk about this movie, I always want to just say my score ahead of time, so I'm going to do that here, which is that I think it's...
Then we'll lose listeners. Don't do that. Don't leave it to the end.
Just like, he gave his score, I'm out.
I hear my score.
People will do that. People will do that.
Awesome-tacular.
It's good because my score drives my whole feelings for this movie. I think it was a 6.5 out of 10, and that's not a negative score. If we get away from how IGN scores movies, where
everything is
the worst movie they've ever seen. So at 6, it's okay, but I enjoyed it I actually enjoyed watching it a lot. I really liked my time with it. However, I have now once we get into it, I'm sure I'll think of things. I have very little to say about this movie. It's not really unique or special in any way. I just had fun while watching it. I'm not going to think about it much in the future. It's just going to kind of exist, but I liked my time with it. So 6.5 out of 10. And now
this is the first MCU film. Well, it's the newest MCU film, and it already feels outdated. I felt pretty bored. Mm-hmm. There were some good action sequences, but it shits the bed in the third act, like every other MCU film.
Here's the thing.
I saw that finger go up.
It puts its third act in a giant flying fortress. That, immediately bumps the score up of this entire movie by, a full point for me.
It sounds good on paper.
There's not really any good action scenes in the third act, but I just love that it was in a flying base, so I'm cool with it.
The CGI was also very noticeable at points.
Yes, it was.
So here's my opener.
He says under the covers.
Then fine, I'll reveal myself.
You don't need to reveal shit.
So imagine being so afraid to release a movie about your lead woman that you have to wait for 2 Wonder Woman movies to come out, a good and a bad one, before being confident enough to say, okay, here's the first movie about the woman we've been around with for 10 years, and also she's already dead.
Right.
I feel like that's honestly kind of really fucking sad. I think that, and I'm giving Disney exactly 0 fucking brownie points for it. They don't get any.
You gotta give them 10 points because they finally answered
that it took them so long. It's not like, oh, thank God they finally made it. No, if you're gonna wait that long and already kill off this character, you maybe shouldn't have done it, because clearly you don't actually care about the story, and I think this comes through in the movie.
Thank God they already made it.
Sorry.
Thank God they made it, because we finally know the answer to the question: Where did Black Widow get her jacket from in Infinity War?
They spent $200
This
million
is
how many
in
pockets
This
does
is
it
my
have?
most asked question, right after where Han Solo's name came from and where he got his blaster from.
I am realizing for the first time right in this moment that that's even the same jacket. And they spent like a considerable amount of dialogue in this movie on that jacket. The very funny thing, so yeah, the elephant in the room that we already kind of said is that this movie should have come out 5 years ago, should have come out after Civil War, and it's worse off for not doing that. And but the ironic thing about this is that if this works as like a competent female-led movie far more than Captain Marvel does, in my opinion.
I can't even remember Captain Marvel.
I
can't even remember.
Does anyone?
What'd you say, Nick?
I don't think either of them do. I think they dropped the ball twice, honestly.
I think this one does work as that, to be honest.
I'm gonna agree with Taylor that it does better than like Captain Marvel. Is this the first film I'm gonna think of when someone think of like, hey, what are some good feminist forward films? No, but I mean, it's better.
If someone would ask me the question, name a movie, this wouldn't even come to my mind. Name a feminist movie, this wouldn't come to my mind. This isn't a movie.
This movie does rank
Stop calling it that.
A lot of the generic Marvel films for me.
It is still
like Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel. This movie still ranks above there, but it doesn't come close to the films that I really like from Marvel either.
Doctor Strange is better. Doctor Strange is not dead.
Well, yeah, but I still don't like Doctor Strange. I aggressively do not care about Doctor Strange. Care for it. So I like this movie. I like this movie a lot better than the other generic Marvel films because at least this felt more like a slightly generic action movie than a slightly generic Marvel movie, and that's already better for me.
I rewatched Thor and Thor: The Dark World, and
God,
I just hate both of those films.
Terrible. So at least Black Widow is above those two.
I don't think any Marvel movie will ever be worse than Thor for me, so that's probably the lowest possible bar, but it wasn't. It wasn't as bad as Thor.
What about Ragnarok? Because I think that actually ties into Black Widow real quick. Are you guys okay with Ragnarok?
I love Ragnarok.
Okay,
Ragnarok is
one of my favorites.
The guy who wrote Ragnarok also wrote this. So just
really?
Yeah, but I think Ragnarok is more a movie that has a touch of Taika Waititi.
For sure. That's fair. I might be the odd man out here. I burned out really fast on just Marvel movies, Cape movies. I just totally real quick. I watched Endgame just to be able to like say I did and be done with it. But I've only probably watched like 20% of the MCU. So for me, when you talk about the jacket and stuff like that, I'm just kind of nodding like, the jacket. You know, like
Max,
I don't get any reference.
It's kind of ironic, Max. It's just tell us. How did you see the movie?
Oh God, I'll get into that in a hot second. But what I will say, just right up the front, like the front load this, I think that I had a better time watching certain scenes of this movie than I did in my preparation for watching this movie. Because I hadn't watched any of these Marvel films, and I know how deeply intertwined they all are, articles are telling me like, hey, you got to watch 9 movies in order to understand this, which... No, you don't. I watched a couple of them, and where Black Widow makes up like a minute of Civil War.
Did you scream and clap when they said the reference to the jacket? Did you scream and clap? You had to watch Infinity War to understand it. So
I know there was I was talking to my friend. I was like, oh, so this is where I'm going to find out what they mean by say like, oh, well, we still have Budapest. And my buddy who had already seen it was like. so I went on Disney Plus because I'm an idiot who has Disney Plus, and I watched the Captain America movies because it seems like Black Widow is more prevalent in those movies, at least up until, and then I watched Civil War. I fell asleep and I watched it again in the morning, and then I watched this by paying Disney $30 so that I could have the valuable privilege of watching it as much as I want until I cancel my Disney Plus subscription, and
or if it comes out for free in 2 months.
No,
Yeah.
but see, the difference is I'm watching a better version because I paid for it, because I supported it. Can't say that shit with a straight face.
Like they're not even getting supported now.
But I think one of
Okay,
the
it's what Kickstarter backers say as well.
I think one of the big things that don't get a Kickstarter with me. I've got too many projects under my belt. But one thing I will say is that I liked watching the dialogue scenes more than watching some of those Captain America movies. I think the Captain America movies have better action, but like Civil War, like them signing the peace accords and all that, didn't care. Oh, and Taylor, you're muted in case you were trying to make a point on that.
Taylor's on his
But
Switch, I saw.
the dialogue in this movie, there's a lot of great little scenes of just the characters talking to each other. I'm like, oh,
I
I'm
agree.
actually
I agree with
having
that.
some investment here.
I agree with
And
that.
and then there's an action scene that was clearly developed by a different department in a different time zone, years apart from each other. You know, so I don't know.
Okay. How do I put this? I don't like any of it. No. Look,
You should say, oh, like any part of this.
yeah. Well, that's not wrong because I felt like I had something substantial to actually say about this, but I felt like this movie really
No.
sucks out okay, here's what I want to say. There is a way to play this that I think could have worked for a Black Widow movie. If the geniuses at Marvel were really like set on only making a Black Widow movie after fucking Endgame, then here's how I would have done it. I would have, well, for one, I would have had it more of Yelena's story than it would have been Black Widow's story. Because
Sure.
if we're being honest, does Natasha really have a character arc this movie, or does
she have a
just sort of
character arc in
act-
any of these movies? I watched these
exactly.
Marvel films and like I didn't like Black Widow. You
Yeah.
know,
She seems to act like a vessel for other characters to kind of go through their own stuff. So I would make this Yelena's movie. I would make Black Widow kind of like the Sherlock Holmes, Scuttlebury Pleasant, Jack Sparrow type, where they are technically the main character, but they are not the focal character. You know, they are like the people who are the center of attention, but not the person whose perspective is being shown. And so I would make it Yelena's story about her recovering from the weird fucking cringe gas. And then I would have it set, and this is the important bit, I would have it fucking set between Infinity War and Endgame.
Yes.
Instead of between Civil War and Infinity War. I don't give a shit about the vest. I give a shit about what happened in the 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame.
It is so annoying
Yeah,
how you didn't get any films between that 5-year gap.
I actually care more about the Civil War to Infinity War gap, because that's one of the most glaring issues to the MCU for me. I don't actually have an issue with the gap from Infinity War to Endgame. That one's fine. But I hate...
So do you feel satisfaction knowing how Natasha
stronger.
Romanoff got the Quinjet?
Shut up, Ruben, about the stupid jacket! I don't like Civil War.
Because they say
I don't like Civil War, and I have a lot of problems with how that's just shoehorned plot development that's completely unearned just to set you up for Infinity War, where it no longer matters 5 minutes into the movie. So I do care more about development between those two films. And it ends up being a minor issue for me that this movie came out 5 years too late, because, I don't know, I can get over it pretty quick, and then whenever I rewatch these stupid films in the future, it'll be where it's supposed to be. So,
okay, but here's just think.
I understand where you're coming from, though. It's just my personal feelings.
I see what you mean in that, like, yes, there is a big period of time where jack shit happens for the main characters between Civil War and Infinity War, so I get that. However, this movie, after Captain America breaks, like, this movie has an easy out, which is, Scarlett Johansson's Natasha's hanging out with the other kind of rebel Avengers in Wakanda, and then, or with Steve or wherever. And then they decide to change that and say, okay, no, she gets broken out, then she separates, and she's almost captured again, but she escapes. This is the story about what she does after she's captured. But then she's about to be captured at the end of the movie, and then it cuts to 3 weeks later, and so she escapes. And then you're like, how does she escape? It's like, I don't know, not important to the
And
movie.
that is
What do you
where
mean it's
Black
not
Widow
important to the movie?
2
You
will
just
come
spent
in.
a movie-
Okay.
You just spent a movie talking about how she got a vest. Why would you end the movie on her about to get captured, and then fucking cut to 3 weeks later when she's fine? That doesn't. Who thought that was a good
That's
idea?
why I
Not
think
have-
this needs one more movie. Actually, I don't know if Nick was here when I said that. I said that I would still watch a Black Widow trilogy of films because I feel like there's still some more missing from her story, and that would be one being a prequel with her and Hawkeye, and one that is another movie between this one and Infinity War, which, does kind of mean it failed as a movie that's supposed to help bridge that gap with her character, at least.
Here's
Because
something about
you
Hawkeye.
still need another movie to finish bridging that gap.
Here's something about Hawkeye. Well, not specifically about Hawkeye, but in the first Avengers movie, you can clearly see Hawkeye and Black Widow say Budapest, and in this movie, Black Widow insists upon that it's Budapest.
I don't understand
Bullshit
that part.
is that?
I don't really
She
care.
watched a
but
YouTube
It's not
video
even
in
a funny
between.
joke.
It's fine.
Is that how you say Budapest?
I'm not sure.
I never knew that, but maybe I've only really heard it in Marvel
No.
movies because I'm that much of an
4
American
white guys
retard. I'm
on
not
a
sure.
video.
Yeah, that's fair.
We don't know. But
None of us actually
White
know.
guys
you
talking
keep
about
mentioning on
Budapest.
how this movie should have come out 5 years ago, and
Yeah.
just like digging around trying to figure out what the hell happened with this production. Apparently, in 2014 was as soon as Feige was like, "Hey, we should do a movie about Black Widow," and apparently, like after Age of Ultron, he wanted to kind of explore that past. Which I didn't see Age of Ultron, but I guess that's also where
Sucks.
like a lot of, well, I mean, that's why I didn't see it, but. Apparently that's where a lot of like Black Widow's character kind of gets thrown out there. So I think that's where Feige is coming from, where he's like, "Hey, let's do a Black Widow film." Is anyone here familiar with the comics at all? Because I'm not.
Yes.
And I want to ask, was this Widow program part of that, or like is it part of the actual canon?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then I can't fault the movie. I thought it was because going into this, I just thought, oh, Black Widow is just a cool KGB spy assassin, and that was like her whole shtick. And then learning that, oh, she's actually part of like this whole program, it seemed weird to me, and I was wondering if that was something that was made to give this movie a end threat, or if this was like comic related. Because if it's in the comics, I can't argue.
Yeah, the Red Room is her like real origin thing.
The
in
Red
comics.
Room is her Black Panther.
Okay.
And as a segue, I will say this may be a hot take. Well, saying something is positive about it.
I love
Maybe a hot
pheromone
take
blockers.
here. But this is one of my favorite Marvel villains, unironically,
That guy.
because this is a villain that it's just a random.
Shame on
dude,
you,
right?
Taylor
I mean,
Stenhouse. Watch more movies. Go into movie jail. Watch 50 movies.
Well, it's not
It's
a very high
crass.
bar, all right. Good Marvel villains is not a really high bar to pass.
No.
This is Dragov. I don't know if he exists in the comics in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
For all intents and purposes, he's a regular dude. He's not like a costume super powered super villain guy. It's a villain that fits this kind of movie, which is it's a Bourne ripoff. Like, let's be honest, it's a Paul Greengrass inspired Bourne ripoff, which I'm okay with.
Mhm.
And so this is a villain that fits this movie rather than having to be, a dude in a costume beating people up. And we're not going to talk about Taskmaster because then I'll get angry.
Yeah,
But-
I was about to
So
read
God
I-
that.
forbid,
Let's-
God forbid we have a dude in a suit beating people up in an action movie.
So I like Dragov. I think it fits tonally. I like that a good chunk of the third act is this kind of emotional altercation between her and Black Widow. It's one of the highlights of the films for me, and I actually liked him a lot as a villain and as a foil.
Is
in
this the
movie.
only time that guy's appeared?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the only time he's appeared.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which definitely probably would have been a little better for me if he had some setup. There's 1,000 better ways to have done this movie. We could spend an hour just talking about that. If you had already done a film that's a Budapest film with her and Hawkeye, and Dreykov is there in a
That is what-
small, shadowy role, this movie would have done a lot better.
That is
I
what
think.
people have been saying since 2012. Make a Hawkeye and Black Widow movie. Because then Hawkeye would get a movie and Black Widow would get a movie.
Right.
But
Yeah,
Hawkeye is
and
now
they
getting
just
a
do
TV
this
show.
for no reason. This is the best way to do it, in my opinion, because we're getting an adaptation of one of the best comics ever written for the Hawkeye TV show. But that's just me.
So let's just talk Hawkeye related.
But are we getting an actual adaptation, or are we getting a quote-unquote adaptation, like WandaVision was an adaptation?
Like
WandaVision didn't really frame itself as an adaptation of anything. This is actually framing itself as an adaptation of action stuff, and it'll do some different stuff, obviously, like throwing Yelena in there, but I think it's going to be an actual
Speaking of Hawkeye, let's just talk about the end credit scene.
The most exciting part of the movie for me.
Yeah, like after the movie,
when the credits
shows
up,
after the credits roll, it was like this movie did nothing for me. When the end credit scenes, the final end credit scene rolled, it was like, oh shit.
Yeah. So Max, I'm assuming you have not seen Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Okay. No, and now that's the thing. So I was prepping up for it, and I saw it because I saw it's like there, and I'm like, maybe I should watch that because it seems like that's like a transitionary thing. Mm-hmm. But then I saw the runtime, like, I was running out of time. But when I saw that end scene, which by the way, when the credits roll, I'm like, fucking, where's my remote? Like, I know you're in there. And I saw it, and then as soon as I see Elaine, the Seinfeld bass roll just starts playing in my head. So no, I have no idea who this character is. So,
and the funny thing is, this character does technically show up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier first. However,
I like how you said technically.
He was supposed to show up in this movie first, because this movie was supposed to come out a year ago.
Oh, so I see.
If it came out at the right time, this was actually the first time you were supposed to be able to see it, even though it's not. She's the short of it is she's the setup character now. She's the Nick Fury, but for I don't know, Dark Avengers or Thunderbolts type team of kind of good, kind of bad people.
Works much better after Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But I think I think this end credit scene was reshot because maybe she would have introduced herself like she did in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's a good point.
But
there's definitely a very good chance
in here, but the movie does not.
No, I'm gonna say this.
I just got more kicks out of the end credit scene than the whole movie.
I'm gonna say this as a dumb American, but can we talk about accents for a moment? Because this is the most Russian accent movie. And to be honest, I don't even know if it's right or not. It just feels like I think David Harbour did a fun job with it.
He's the most fun character in the film.
He is. Has any of you guys seen? He did a short film for Netflix called like Frankenstein's Monster.
Mm-mm.
It's pretty funny. It's like a mockumentary where he is following his father, who did a stage play made-for-TV movie about Frankenstein's monster. And it's a very similar character to what he plays in this. So that's why I thought of there. But Florence Pugh, she has this really heavy accent. And I don't know if it's fine or not. And apparently I read an article where she said she's actually really embarrassed by it. And she's worried that people are going to make fun of her about it.
So
I don't know. But
here's the thing. I don't know if you guys have seen this on social media, but a extra in the film said on Instagram that he is one of the first mutants in the MCU.
I saw that last night. He's the Ursa Major, yeah.
Yeah. So like,
but I mean, how seriously are we gonna? I mean, we've already had Wanda and Peter. Like, they've had mutant characters that they've just said aren't mutants. So I don't know how much stock I'm putting in that.
Mutants anymore in the comic.
The Age of Miracles.
Hold on. Is that real? Are they not mutants in the comics anymore?
I'm fucking with you. They're not mutants in the comics anymore. I know it.
Okay. Well, I know that's a whole can of worms I won't get into, but I am gonna. I have questions about that later. I'm so confused.
Please introduce the X-Men into the MCU. I'm dying for X-Men content.
But how? I didn't say that with the right tone. They're gonna do it, obviously, but that's a real question. How are they gonna introduce X-Men to this movie? I mean, are they just gonna one thing?
Loki multiverse.
Are they gonna? Oh, you think they're just gonna do multiverse stuff? But still, even then, like
have them be like this, this underrepresented, lean into the underrepresented thing, like people try to shut it up.
But how are you going to explain that they haven't existed until right now?
Yeah, isn't the whole shtick of X-Men like mutants and superpowers are kind of like an unknown and weird thing? So it's kind of hard to have that and then also have like Iron Man flying around blasting shit. I'm not a comic book guy, so I don't know.
Okay. So I can actually talk to this because this is so much more interesting to me than Black fucking
You
Widow.
just the glasses there.
So let me break this down. The whole thing about mutants is that there is an element of intimacy to their powers that isn't the case with characters like Captain America or Iron Man or Thor. Because what you're seeing with mutants is that your kid is growing up, and then suddenly your kid can shoot, lasers out of their eyes, or drain people's lives with a touch. And so it creates this fear within parents, and then by extension society, that their own kids, their own generation is turning against them. So it becomes this sort of, and then it becomes, obviously, it's not a perfect analogy for discriminated people.
Yeah, X-Men's a lot of social issues.
Representations of the feelings of that. And so you lean into it, I say, by having these characters be in hiding exactly because of all the pressure that gets put on people in the MCU if you have powers. Because suddenly you have to fight these amazing, huge threats, but maybe these people just want to live their lives.
Monster of the Week.
Yeah, and then so Professor Xavier comes in and he's like, "Oh, children, I have a mansion for you. This is where you can go to school." And then Magneto's like, "Oh, this Charles, you're a liberal cock."
Why is Thor running the school of gifted? It almost sounded like a Thor impression there.
Listen,
Hemsworth is in a little wheelchair.
Listen, I have an explanation for that.
Captain Xavier.
So, also talking about X-Men and other stuff, there's also this thing that just released. It's Deadpool and Cork reacting to a trailer. It's not official MCU, I think, but
it's a commercial. I'm not going to talk about a commercial. I'm not going to watch a commercial.
Like, if that was...
Hey, catch me, marketing guys.
If that was the first thing we'd see as a crossover, the MCU with Deadpool, that would be totally hilarious.
It's like a tie-in for Buick.
Like, people... Like, Korg and Deadpool advertising another movie, and then also advertising that Deadpool was in the MCU. That would add so... I don't know.
I'm sorry, I can't bring myself to care. I just can't. I'm also not going to watch it because it's a commercial and it sounds kind of cringe.
Alright. I gotta say it. Taskmaster fucking sucks.
Oh god, he's so bad. I think he. It's not a he. She's so bad.
So as a novice to this, like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, oh, it's kind of weird. Like, Taskmaster's using like Captain America's shield. Oh, it's got like a bow like Hawkeye. Which, by the way, am I the only one who thought this looked like the Crisis dude? Because like the video game,
you're absolutely right.
And I think
he kind of did. I didn't notice that.
Without looking at a Google search, I'm pretty sure the Crisis guy has a bow on one of the box arts.
Yeah, in 3.
Yeah, but anywho, so I get the whole shtick. Like, I didn't figure it out until they showed like the Black Panther claws come out. It's like, oh, it's a mimic. It fights all the other parts, which sounds like something the comic book movie would do. Is that accurate to comic books? Like,
so Taskmaster's abilities are that he can, mimic any fighting style. He can watch you fight, and then he can do the same thing.
And then they changed it for this movie. The
he does have a shield. He does use a bow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and he uses a sword usually.
Gotcha.
I think Taskmasters is a guy named Tony Masters, and he's just a mercenary. He's just kind of a scummy mercenary guy. Nothing else is similar or nothing else about who Taskmaster actually is as a character in this movie is
classic MCU moment.
Who's the guy in Civil War who's got like the weird like knife gloves that fights Captain America?
Crossbones.
What? Oh,
okay.
Right? Yeah.
Because my brain, when I was watching Black Widow, I thought like, oh, that's weird. Is that guy back? Or... Because I'm pretty sure he blew the fuck up. Which is pretty funny because in this movie, that Taskmaster also blew the fuck up. So,
It's quite funny. A lot of people
that's true.
I know thought it was going to be Rachel Weisz's character.
Oh, okay.
Marvel put a lot of red herrings on the poster, There's the one guy that supplies Black Widow with stuff during the film.
Oh yeah,
And
that
I think
guy.
he was
Yeah.
purposely put in the poster to be a red herring.
Which where does that guy?
I
get
didn't pay
money?
attention towards any of the marketing for this film. I watched the trailers when they
I didn't
came
know there
out,
was.
when this movie was going to come out at its normal time, and then I never touched them again. Never paid attention to the marketing, and I think I had a much more positive experience because of that too. Because I've heard some people that were
I didn't
just
even watch the trailer
blasted by
once.
marketing for this film.
I just watched the first trailer, I've watched the first 30 seconds, then quit. It was like, okay,
Really?
it's gonna be a Black Widow movie.
You already made your mind up there.
Yeah, so, does anyone have anything else to say about Black Widow? Before we
Not
go to
really.
spoilers?
I've got a few things. Wait,
Alright.
sorry, you go first.
No, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, I think. Well, I'm still not done with talking about Taskmaster because I think the comic book adaptation aspect.
It doesn't work
I think
as
it
a
is
character.
just a wasted opportunity as a character. Like,
Yes.
it's a non-character, really. It's the fucking. Look, I don't want to go there, but it's Deadpool from X-Men Origins Wolverine. You know,
a little bit, but
This
at
is-
least
this is-
at least this isn't Wade Wilson. You know, at least this isn't Tony
No,
Master.
no, but here's a counterpoint. At least in X-Men Origins Wolverine, they had the decency to be like, oh, this isn't how the character's always gonna be. You see, he opens his mouth at the end. Haha, it's a shit movie. But like at least it is still the same character, just in a different skin. This
I don't
is a
know. I think
completely
I
different
think I
fucking
give this
character.
movie the same caveat because they could still theoretically bring Tony Masters in at some point.
They
So at least
could,
I
but
don't feel like Tony Masters was ruined.
I suppose, but they also didn't, and I don't know if they will since they took 10 years to bring Taskmaster in.
I don't know that they will either. It's a technicality, if anything. But yeah, I don't
It's
know.
like-
You're right. It's a dumb character.
I don't know how this movie was made. I only have brief experience with like industry and like how it works and stuff like that. It feels like Taskmaster's character was designed and set up for the movie for all the CGI action scenes, and that was
Yeah.
years ago. And then when they're like, "Oh, we got to write a script," and they've got this character, this Taskmaster character, because it's clearly the action villain, because this Dreykov guy is not going to be an action villain. And you got to have someone to comically fight David Harbour.
Imagine if he was, though. Like, just this
Yeah, I mean,
tiny
he could've-
Russian guy climbing out of his tank, just firing.
Yeah, you know. But I
That's
feel like they
Go
were
ahead, sorry.
they were looking at the script, and they were looking at these action scenes, and they had all these action set pieces, and they're like, okay, now what? What if?
Yeah.
And then that's where it switched into this whole. Do we do spoiler alerts on this? I'm new to this
Nah,
process.
just go
No,
ahead.
so
Automatic
the fact
spoiler.
the fact that she's the daughter of Dreykov, and how Black Widow's very sad that she accidentally blew her up, which I don't remember. I don't think I saw that movie, so I'm not sure. Like
No,
all
it's
that
not a thing.
emotional.
So
Oh, it's not a thing.
I had feelings on that, but you finish your thought
Oh my
first.
lord. Anywho, I feel like that all got shoehorned in because if you notice, there's no scene of them fighting with the mask off. So I almost wonder if they had no idea who the character was actually going to be while they were doing the visual effects for this. And then towards the end, they're like, "Oh, we got to figure out a fun twist." And I don't know. I guess if I cared about the character, it would work, but I don't know who she is. And Antolia, is that her name? Something like that.
Yeah, they had the balls to call her Antonia, which that's
Oh,
the
that's
part
right,
that
because you
pissed
said
me
Tony
off.
Tony something, right?
Just
That's
having
funny.
the balls to just make it up. And she's Russian, so that doesn't really even make sense. And that's the part that pissed me off.
Also,
Yeah.
she's played by an actress who's older than Scarlett Johansson.
Is she?
really?
Whoa. I
Yeah,
didn't know
she
that.
is.
That doesn't make any sense. She was like a child,
Yeah, she
15
was.
years ago
Now-
or something?
Now, here's the thing: the morally ambiguous, well, not even ambiguous. The morally bankrupt idea of Black Widow blowing up a building with a kid in it. I think that's a really cool angle. I think that's
Sure.
Yes.
interesting because it makes her a bit layered. And I think in a movie set between Infinity War and Endgame, where Yelena is learning this about Black Widow, and Black Widow's not proud of it, and you find out near the end as opposed to like beginning middle. and then that's sort of one of her greatest shame things. I think that would be a really, really good angle, because that's grim, dark, makes for an interesting plot point, but then her the moral, like, ambiguity is erased, because, oh, turns out she's fine. Here she is, she's mind controlled, she broke the mind control, it's fine.
It always feels like mind control is such a crutch, you know?
Just
because then there's no weight.
Yeah, just have that murder, flat out murder, be a point of, like, intense, like, story, like, intense emotional, like, an emotional through line for Black Widow. Then maybe she'd have a character. You know,
the movie was really sanitized.
Other than it's like it was so terrified at the prospect of doing something that was slightly unique that it had to retroactively go back on the stuff that it was doing unique and be like, here's the Infinity War jacket, quick, no one ask questions. It's just, oh my god.
Go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh no, that's all right. I feel like if you go with your point, then I can calm down.
I think Civil War is the one where maybe it's not Civil War, maybe it's the Winter Soldier or something. But there's the whole like she's got the data and she's going to disseminate it, and the bad guy of that movie is like, oh, they're going to know about you. Are you ready for that? You know, and she's very nervous about that. And of course, me being a dope who hasn't seen any of these movies, I was kind of interested in that. Like, oh, what is that dark secret? You know? And I think that to your point of that weight of kind of her actions, I think that could have been really neat, you know? I think Civil War is the whole deal where it's like, oh, Bucky was the one who killed Stark's parents. Like,
yes, it's
okay, it's contrived, but that's an emotional weight there. There wasn't that kind of a scene that could have come up in this that maybe that, Yelena and Natasha could have had a moment like that. I'm not sure.
Because Black Widow has not spoken to any character in this film for like 5 years at least, if not longer. And so she's trying to convince us that she has these close emotional relationships, even though like we haven't seen any of this stuff developed. Not to say that you can't develop.
They kind of hint on that with the family thing, the whole fake family aspect, and I actually thought that was a neat little setup, and then the movie just drops it.
Mm-hmm. And because, like, they fucking walk away. They're like, oh, we found our family. Yeah. All right, well, let's see ya. And then
good luck in superhero prison.
Yeah, and then they're like, okay, you can go to prison. And she's like, yep, I'm going to prison. 2 weeks later, she's out of prison. Why would you set a scene up like that and then immediately cut away unless you're going to bring back Scarlett Johansson? But then, hey, newsflash, she died. She died in Endgame. What's the point? What's the point? This whole story leads up to her being like, hey, I have no family and I'm depressed, I'm gonna kill myself. And that's the end. That's the end of the story. That's how it ends. And how sad. How sad. Like, why would you it feels like they had zero respect for Black Widow. And then they made this movie as an obligation because it's like, fuck, well, they keep asking for it and really we're past the cutoff point at this point, but if we don't do it, then it's worse than uploading a half-assed version on Disney Plus and getting people to pay $30 for it. So let's do that, and
this guy.
So let's do that, and we'll put fucking Taskmaster in it. See how the nerds like that.
Do you think there's anyone who is like really gung ho for that? Like, oh, Taskmaster.
Initially, people were keen.
Then we all remembered that was going to take place in the MCU.
Part of the reason I watched this movie at home was like, I'm going to write notes because I'm going to be a professional here. And I only wrote one note. And that note is simply lobotomy surgery, hyphen Crayola marker. So I had to go back and forth on it. I'm like 80% sure that is one of those like kids Crayola markers that they're drawing on her forehead with. Because it looks like the like children's kind of like scroll that's on the Crayola marker. I don't know. And if that's I'm focusing on,
this says a lot of the film.
They had fucking a sad piano rendition of "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
I didn't know how to think of that one when they started.
Crayola,
I ignored the heck out of that.
That was Zack Snyder Watchmen all over again. Hey, remember these cool songs? Well, we couldn't get the license to the original, so how about a cover? A sad, broody cover.
I don't think I like sad, moody covers. I like that kind of music. I like the sad, broody piano music.
Sure.
I don't know if I like it as a cover of "Smells Like Teen Spirit."
It depends on how you use it, right? Yeah. And when you
Like-
know it's being used for like a film by the largest media conglomerate on the face of this planet, it kind of ruins its emotional weight.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God! And I think, to your point about Dreykov, I didn't. I mean, I thought he was so fucking boring, but I think it could have worked if, yeah, like they said, he was established. I think if they had just put an inkling of fucking Black Widow foreshadowing in like something like Age of Ultron, where where they get into Black Widow's past a little bit anyway. If you have Dreykov in a scene in that movie, or if you have like him doing stuff in other Marvel movies and then building up to it, and hell, even lean into it. Maybe there's this big thing where you keep building and building up to this villain, and then he's so underwhelming to the point where it's deliberate, like he's almost this pathetic shell of a man. I think that would have been really good. But I think that's kind of what they were going for, so I didn't despise it, but I also thought it was boring as shit. So
I think if I had heard about this character before going into the movie, I would be like, whoa, it's that dude, you know? And I think every movie should be able to stand on its own, but let's be real, Marvel films don't operate like that. They operate on an additive, interconnected way. So it relies on those setups, because otherwise you introduce a character I've never heard about, and then he's dead, so whatever.
All right.
With the glasses flying through the air.
So let's just go into score. I think we all know what we all think about this film. I think we all spoken our piece.
Yeah.
I'll just start. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
Fair.
I'm
a 6.5. I said mine, so yeah, 6.5.
What was yours?
Are you saying for me?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to agree that it's like a 6. And the reason be is that most of these Marvel films just bore me to shit. The action scenes, I think, were completely unnecessary. They didn't add that much other than just be a spectacle, which I get it. That's what a lot of people come for. But I thought that those dialogue scenes, like specifically the scene of David Harbour and Florence Pugh talking to each other, I thought that was more interesting to me than a lot of Marvel shit. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It's watchable. I paid $30 for it, so I can watch it anytime I want, but I'm probably never going to watch it again.
I have to give it a 4. I cannot justify giving this movie anything more than a 4 in my head. I really don't like there are like 3 scenes I like in that movie. And they are the scenes with Florence Pugh, David Harbour, and at the table, just talking with each other. And
everyone but Scarlett Johansson.
And yeah, a little bit. And it's kind of makes me think, if you're going to make a found family movie, you should really have more of the found family. That's halfway through the movie, and then they immediately get separated. And then they only unite at the end, and then they ditch Natasha so she goes to get arrested. And then she leaves, and suddenly she's blonde, and she's going to Infinity War, and that's it. I just felt satisfied that we got to see the story of the fucking jacket. So yeah, 4 out of 10.
So with a lot of films, I'm watching on when they were released in that order. This might be one of the first films that I'm gonna put like after Civil War and then watch everything when it released. But the thing is,
I do that a lot with Marvel.
I'm probably not gonna watch Black Widow again. That's the thing.
Oh really? Yeah. See, I will. Honestly, I enjoyed the movie. I don't think it's special or unique in any way. I'm not really giving it a lot of credit.
Is it because it's additive?
Yeah, it's because it's additive. It's different than what we've normally seen for a Marvel movie.
And that's
I
true.
will take a Paul Greengrass ripoff as a Marvel film because that's different.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a great movie, but I liked watching it. I don't think too fondly of it on the back end, but I will enjoy seeing it again when that time inevitably comes. I'm not going to seek it out, but when it comes. So.
Final question before.
I just don't care. I don't care that much about it at all. Like I said, I really just have so little to say about this movie.
Final question before we end this thing.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Did it put us all 4 men into our place?
Yep. Put me right into my place, that's for sure.
Sure, yeah.
This made me this movie makes
That's
me
like
want to
gatekeep girl boss.
this movie makes me want to become a woman and then just like and then start my own Black Widow movie where I
Nick,
just like
let's be real. The whole group has been pushing that one. That this movie is not.
I'm being
Nicholas Finch as Catboy Femme-made Black Widow.
I'd watch that more than this. Hey, I'm gonna leave you guys with a fun bit of trivia. So apparently, development of this film was February 2004.
Whoa.
When originally the license was bought out by Lionsgate. And do you want to know who was going to be the writer and director? David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to leave you with that one. Have fun reading fantastic.
That. I know David Hayter does a few writing projects, so
yeah.
But I don't think I've heard him direct. That actually
would have been really out of left field. That is very interesting.
Black Widow. You gotta spray the gas in her face.
Learn the importance of CQC, Black Widow.
I mean, if Black Widow was basically a Metal Gear movie, that would
would be fun. Yeah, that would
be a lot better.
So much better. Oh my god! And then imagine if Taskmaster was like, "Sister."
All right, I guess that's where we just.
Is that
ended.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Next week, Space Jam, Looney Tunes Back in Action, and Space Jam: A New Legacy.
I'm so sad that I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm so sad. Look how sad I am.
I don't even know how I'm going to get myself to watch those 2 Space Jam movies, but I'll figure it out. Because I'm at a camp thing next week for like Wednesday to Sunday, so at some point I'm just going to have to say, sorry.
Just on his phone.
Sorry. Gotta go watch it. I mean, honestly, I probably will have to watch this movie on my phone, so.
All right. So, till next week, guys.
It doesn't seem like I'll really be missing anything, so.
For Space Jam.
Thanks for having me on, fellas.
All right.
Thanks for coming. You were a great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here.
I'm always here to give terrible opinions about movies.